How's it going, ladies and gents? We're going to do some 3 basic triangle truths that we need to know. Again, this should be review, but it's going to get us into understanding the im2 stuff so we can master it a little quicker. So let's get started with the first couple triangle truths here. Very simple. And the thing we have to understand is that every triangle has 6 total parts. Okay? That's 3 sides and 3 interior angles. So if you look at this drawing here, our interior angles are in the inside of the triangle. A lot of times interior angles will be notated by using little arcs. And hopefully this is something that you talked about in im1, but if you see little arcs, those are trying to notate interior angles. Okay, so we'll get into this as we start doing similarity of triangles, but for now we just got to get comfortable with interior angles. All right, the other thing I want to talk about is just naming the interior angles and naming the sides. So if we are trying to name angle A, so if I want to name angle A or write it down on a piece of paper, it's very, very simple. All we have to do is put our angle symbol and then the letter that has the angle in it. So for example, this is angle A. Okay? If you want to do angle B, it'd be the same idea. The other part of the triangle we want to name are the sides. So the sides are these lines here. So this side is BC, this side would be AB or BA, and this side would be AC or CA. So to name a side, you want to use 2 capital letters, and those 2 letters will surround the side. For example, if I want to name this side here, side BC, I would simply say BC, make this a little better, and I would put a dash over it. Okay, that dash means I'm talking about the side length BC, side segment BC, and that will denote that side. Okay, hopefully this is review, and we'll get more into this as we get along. The other thing I want to show you or mention is that when you name a triangle, you use the triangle symbol and then the 3 letters that make up the vertexes of the triangle or the vertices of the triangle. And again, vertices are these corners where 2 lines meet. Okay, so this triangle is triangle A, B, C. All right, let's move on to another triangle truth. Triangle sum theorem. Okay, sum, if you forgot, the word sum just means adding. So when we sum, the triangle sum theorem says we're going to add up all the interior angles, and they will always equal 180 degrees. Okay? So if I was using this example here in example 2, and I needed to solve for angle X. Notice how X is inside, therefore it's an angle. This is what I would do. I would use the triangle sum theorem, which says we have to figure out all 3 sides. So I now know that this symbol means 90 degrees. Okay? So what I'm going to do is add up all 3 angles and set them equal to 180, because that is kind of the rule that we're going to use. So looking at this angle, I'm going to add 90 plus 42 plus X, and that all equals 180 degrees. Now to solve this out, we simply just solve for x. So the first thing I want to do is add these two guys together, 90 plus 42, and we get 132 plus x equals 180. Okay, and then we just continue. This turns into a very simple equation from im1. So 132 plus x equals 180. So let's do the math here. 132 plus x equals 180. And then we solve for x by subtracting 132. And x is going to equal 48. So now we have solved for angle x. And that's how you use triangle sum theorem. All right, so that is our second triangle truth. And now we're going to move on to our third triangle truth. Okay, the third triangle truth says the angle size and opposite sine length are connected by what I call a proportion. Okay, so in other words, what I'm trying to say is this. When we have an angle, so let's look at angle 37 here. Its opposite side, which is across from angle 37, is AB. So angle 37, across from that is going to be its opposite side. So side AB is opposite angle 37. So these two pieces of a triangle have a specific relationship. They're proportional. What that means is the bigger the angle, the bigger the opposite side. So if angle 37 was bigger, then side AB would have to be longer. Okay? So that's what it means to be proportional. For example, if we look at angle B, which is 90 degrees, its opposite side is AC. We now know that AC is going to be longer than AB because the angle is bigger. Okay, and that's what we're talking about here in this example, or third triangle truth. So based on this, I want you to try to answer question A and B. If you want to pause the video, you can. I'm going to do the work for you, but please attempt to answer it. So for example A, we're using the triangle sum theorem, which says we're going to add up all the angles. So I'm going to add up angle A, which is x, plus angle B, which is 90, plus angle C, which is 37, and we're going to set it equal to 180 degrees. And from there, we will solve for x to find the value of x, or angle A. Okay, so if you simply solve for x, which I've shown here, your final answer would be angle A would equal 53 degrees. So I'm going to go ahead and put that into my drawing. So this is no longer x, this is 53 degrees. Okay, problem B, which side is the shortest? And this is where we're going to use triangle truth 3. We're going to use this by looking at the angles. The angles can tell us what side is the shortest. So we simply look for the shortest or the smallest angle. So we know that angle B is 90 degrees. Angle C is 37, and we now know angle A is 53. Of these three angles, which one is the smallest? And that answer is 37. So since 37 is the smallest, it will point to the shortest side. So we now know AB must be the shortest side. So side AB is the shortest. Okay guys, let's start looking at some examples dealing with some triangles. Again, some of this stuff we're going to talk about is review. So I'll try to mention it as we go through, just some ideas that you should have been taught in im1 that we're going to use for these two examples. So in example A, we're going to find the missing angle measures and then identify the longest side. So in example A, the first thing we have to be comfortable with or remember is these marks here. So these dashes here and here, when you have dashes on lines in geometry, that means these two sides have equal measure. They're the same length. Okay? In a triangle that has two sides that are the same, this is called an isosceles triangle. So an isosceles triangle is a triangle that has two sides that are equal. Okay? There's one thing that we have to remember because of an isosceles triangle, and it has to deal with the base angles. So these two guys here are the base angles. When you have an isosceles triangle, one of the properties of an isosceles triangle is that the base angles are going to be equal. Again, this is only when you have an isosceles triangle. So because I know that, I now can say that these two angles are equal. So I have now just found that X equals 56. So the measure of angle C is 56 degrees. Now to find angle H, or in this example, angle Y, I'm going to use triangle sum theorem. So let's go ahead and get that going. So in triangle sum theorem, it says I should add up all three angles. So I'm going to add up 56 plus 56 plus Y. And triangle sum theorem says it should equal 180 degrees. So we now can just solve for Y. So 56 plus 56, that's going to give me 112 plus Y equals 180. And then to solve for Y, we subtract 112 to both sides. And that's going to give me Y equal to 68. So now we know measure of angle H is 68 degrees. Okay? Alright, we're going to go ahead and do this guy here. And then let's go back to A. We got to list the longest side. So the longest side, if we look at this, we now know that angle C is 56 and angle H is 68. So I'll put those in. Because of that, the biggest angle, it's opposite sides the longest side. So the longest side is CS. Okay, let's go ahead and complete example B. Let's wrap this up. So we want to find the missing angle measures. Again, we have isosceles. triangle. So we now know that the base angles, in this case, here's a base angle, here's a base angle. Okay, and base angles in an isosceles are equal. So to find these angles, we're going to use, again, triangle sum theorem. So triangle sum theorem says add up all your angles. So 30 plus x plus x, and this should equal 180. Do the math. That's 30 plus 2x equals to 180. And solve for x. So I'm going to subtract 30. I get 2x equals 150. Divide by 2. X is going to equal 75. So that tells me measure of angle B and C are going to be 75 degrees. Okay? And then the shortest to longest. So if we're doing shortest to longest, we will have 75 and 75. So the shortest side is actually going to be across from 30. So the shortest side is going to be BC. And then the longest side, or the next longest side, will be C or B because they're equal. So you could put them in either order. So that's going to be, I'll do AB will be my next longest side, and then my last longest side will be AC.